As investment in health tech continues to soar, we welcome 5 experts from the field to shed light on where we are headed and how ICT companies can engage and be part of this opportunity. Please welcome Dr. Maysa Al Hussaini, Neuropathologist Chair of the Institutional Review Board at the King Hussein Cancer Center.
Thank you very much, dear Sabah, for the kind introduction. And actually, this is the first time for me to speak to non-healthcare workers. So I'm not quite sure. I hope I can convey the message clearly. I have no disclosures, and it's very interesting that in 2017, out from their outpatient department visit to describe the physician, the doctor, in 2 words. And then they constructed the word cloud. And what was mentioned, or the most frequently used words, were that the physician was harried, rushed, and busy. And I guess perhaps each and every one of us who goes to seek medical advice, whether in the private sector or in the public sector or at KHCC, for example, can feel or can sense this feeling or opinion about doctors. However, a very famous book writer and author, Eric Tobol, thinks that artificial intelligence, big data in healthcare can actually make healthcare human again, because patients will have more time to see the physicians, ultimately leading into creating better healthcare. This is not the only benefit of big data, artificial intelligence, data mining, and so on in healthcare. The invention of what is known as smart hospitals is actually at the forefront of big data in healthcare, where all the infrastructure is in a way connected for the benefit of our patients. However, this comes with a price. And when we look to ethical, legal, and societal issues in relation to big data, artificial intelligence in healthcare, actually the list keeps on growing on each and every day. However, I selected to talk about what I consider the 6 pillars of artificial intelligence and big data in healthcare. These are privacy and confidentiality, informed consent, ownership, big data divides and bias, epistemology, and accountability. Now, what I need you, please, while I'm presenting the pillars of ethics in healthcare in the era of big data and artificial intelligence, to think of yourselves as patients encountering what I'm going to present. So each and every time, please think, would you accept or not what I'm going to be presenting? So privacy and confidentiality, just a quick reminder that when we talk about privacy, we're actually referring to persons. Confidentiality is information or data. So privacy is al-khususiyya and confidentiality is as-sirriyya. So what is the difference? In privacy, we're talking about a situation when a person is free from public interference or intrusion, while the confidentiality refers to a situation when information is protected from being used or abused by different sectors. When we talk about privacy in the era of big data and artificial intelligence, there were several actually editorials, whether in scientific journals or otherwise, talking about the issue of making traditional notions of privacy as we know it obsolete. As we're walking, data is being collected, whether we like it or not. Our wearable devices collecting data all the time without, sometimes with, and sometimes without permission. And really, this takes me back to the very famous 1984 novel by George Orwell, and I believe everybody remembers the slogan that was used, which is, Big Brother is watching you. At that time, when George Orwell wrote the novel in 1948, the idea of somebody watching somebody else was kind of weird. However, in a recent publication Shoshana Zuboff wrote clearly that we are actually moving from the big brother into big other watching us, collecting data on every single piece of information that can be collected. And very important piece of definition, perhaps, that we should allude to when it comes to healthcare and data is something that is called pervasive data. So what is pervasive data? Simply, it is the ability to aggregate, connect, repurpose, update, and track our data continuously to the degree, to the edge that ultimately nothing can be private, nothing can be anonymized. Remember, a few years back, actually in 2015, a science journal, which is one of the big journals in medicine and science in general, wrote that in the coming future, in the near future, faces will be identified through the different algorithms. And nowadays, just you post an image on Facebook, and in no time, every person in that photo will be identified. And this is because of this way the pervasive data are collected and connected. Importantly, confidentiality. Now, when any of us works into a clinic or in the hospital, we share our data, sometimes sensitive information, with our physician based on what we call a trust relationship. Now, what would you do if you know that your data, anonymized, will be shared by others for research purposes, for example? Would you agree? Would you not agree? What would be your reaction be? I think this is very important notion that should be kept in mind whenever we talk about privacy and confidentiality of big data and its applications in healthcare. And this brings me to point or pillar number 2, which is informed consent. Should we be consented on the sharing of our data, our private data in medical records with others? And what are the types of consents that can be used? In literature, we have 3 types of consents. We have the broad or blank consent, which is you can use the data whenever, whatever, it's a free hand on using the data. Or should it be tiered usage of data? You can use my data for research in cancer, but not in Alzheimer's. And can we share the data globally? Am I allowing my physician to share the data with researchers in the States, in Japan, and so on and so forth? Number 3 is ownership. And this is, in a way, it's all interconnected. Who really owns the data? Is it the physician, the hospital, or the patient? And this becomes extremely important if we know, the data can be redistributed, and sometimes, perhaps with innovations, money will be generated. Will you be allowed to have shares in neither, or perhaps in both? Number 4 is big data divides and biases. And this is extremely important because until very recently, the big data algorithms in healthcare were built based on data collected from Western population. So what does that mean? There will be something that we call the algorithm bias. The algorithms are biased toward the population from which the data was collected. This will lead to distortion of data, segmentation, and discrimination. And an excellent example, actually, in healthcare is the IBM's Watson for oncology, which was built on data collected from patients in New York. But when the same algorithm was brought outside the States, in particular in China, it did not work. Actually, this was one of the major failures of IBM, and Watson was dismantled and sold in pieces. Epistemology, it is the theory of knowledge. We all know that in order to find evidence, we have to do our literature search, a collection of data to prove or disprove a hypothesis. Really, what happens with artificial intelligence and big data in healthcare, that what they call that data speaks for itself. I don't have to have a hypothesis. I don't have to have an evidence. I can generate the evidence from whatever data I have. And this, again, leads to what is known as inequality. And last but not least is accountability. So we know that artificial intelligence in medicine, in particular, the field that I'm knowledgeable of, is looked at as a black box. So we have the algorithms inside, and one feature, the important feature of big data and artificial intelligence in healthcare, that the data keeps on feeding itself, and so the algorithm keeps on changing over time. So if a physician treats a patient, the data from that patient will enter into the black box, and with time, actually, years later, the algorithm that started in that artificial intelligence will be completely different. So what happens if something goes wrong? Who to blame for this unfortunate mistake? Is it the physician, the algorithm scientist, perhaps other patients who fed data into the artificial intelligence, or others? So how really to mitigate some of those unfortunate ethical issues in healthcare is by adopting what is known as fair information practice principles, including the choice, informed consenting, a trusting relationship, security and integrity of data, access, accountability with forward thinking rather than by just backward thinking, and certainly diversification. So in conclusion, I hope I was able to convey in this 10 minutes that big data applications will touch and transform every piece of our daily life, including healthcare, and that healthcare big data systems and its application remain ethically fragile in practice, and they impose new ethical, legal, and societal questions, and that privacy and confidentiality, informed consent, ownership, digital device, and accountability are among the most important ethical issues, and certainly the fair information practice principles are needed to mitigate those ethical issues. Thank you very much.